Good morning, YouTubers. Today is the 13th of November, 2023. I'm at Shamrock Automotive in Elkton, Maryland. Lee and Charlie, two of the mechanics here, helped me to unload my loot from the back of the F-150. So this is the shop where I'll be doing some work, getting it ready to put into my project car. Here's the engine sitting on a nice high bench, and here's the engine suspended from a hoist right now. Right now I'm getting ready to remove the exhaust manifold from the driver's side, as I talked about earlier. And I'll finish pulling out those freeze plugs and remove the broken motor mounts. Just do a little prepping work while it's here inside a nice sheltered area. There are the broken motor mount sitting on the floor. Now I'm going to see if I can straighten this spacer that goes between the engine and transmission. If I can't straighten it to my liking, I will simply swap it with the one I have on my car. So we'll see how this goes. That's straightened up real easy, so I don't have to worry about swapping that with my car or taking off the ring gear. All right, next come the bolts for the exhaust manifold over here on this side. So here we go. So far, coming apart easily. Now the nuts on top here, see how they come loose. Hopefully they'll come loose fairly easily. Let's see if I can get this on there. Just have to do it the open-ended way. Hope for the best. Oh yeah, that's loose. All right, I always like it when things come apart easily. Oh yeah, these are nice. Not bad at all. This manifold's obviously been off fairly recently. Hopefully even the one on my engine will come off just as easy, the old engine. All right, the manifold came off easily. Again, here's the bad stud. And I know the ones that are on my other manifolds on my parts on my project car are in better shape, so hopefully all that comes apart easily. If not, I may ask this shop here to see if they can put new studs on this for me. We'll see what I come up with. All right, I have finished removing the exhaust manifold. I scraped off the remnants of gasket over here, so the new one is just about ready to be installed. When I get my gaskets, and I just pulled the three freeze plugs that I hadn't pulled all the way out yesterday because I couldn't reach them all the way. I had a friend, a subscriber, suggest strongly that I rinse out the interior of the water jacket in the block because of all the gunk that is probably accumulating in there, and there is some in there. When I looked inside, I can see it in there. I'm going to do my best to just use my fingers and stuff to scoop it out because in this shop I don't really have the ability to put a garden hose in here and spray it out, so we'll see how much I can get out just using my fingers. I mean, I'm sure that'll be better than nothing. So that's my next step. Let's see, I'll just give you an example here. Yeah, there's some goop right there you can see coming out of the block. I'll get as much of that out as I can. I was just looking underneath the oil pan, and Brian wasn't kidding when he told me they had some kind of a different plug on the oil pan. That looks like a jerry rig to me. The one I have on my other car has a different kind of plug too, but it doesn't look quite like that. So I'm going to be removing this oil pan and replacing it with the one I have on the other car, since that's got a better plug on it than this one does, and this one's leaking too. So that's not a big deal. I'll just have to get another gasket to take care of that. Good to be finding this stuff out now. With the easy access to the engine right now, I'm going to go ahead and change out the spark plugs. No sense in not doing that. So I went to the local store and was actually able to find something in stock for a change for this old motor. So I'm going to swap those out real quick. All right, so I'm gapping my new spark plug, setting it at 35 thousandths, which is the original spec. The one that came out of the engine was too narrow. It was probably set at about 28, 29 thousandths. I also double checked, since I'm going to add the Pertronics electronic ignition, if that meant a different spark plug gap, but the recommendations I'm finding are to leave it at the manufacturer's spec, so that's what I'm doing, setting the gaps. And then this is the first one going in over here. I don't even know what number, oh, there it is. That's the number one cylinder, so that's appropriate to start there, right? So putting that in, and I'll just snug it up and start working on the next one. The first one, when I took it loose, was the spark plug was actually loose in the bore. So let's see how this one is. Oh, that one is too. Maybe Brian had loosened them and put them back in. I don't know. It doesn't really matter. Makes it easy on me. All right, that was one of the easiest spark plug changes I've ever done. So all 8 are replaced and tightened down, all gap properly, 35 thousandths. And I think that's all I can do right at the moment as far as being in the shop here. So I'm gonna head back home and start taking some more things apart on my project car. All right, now it's later in the day on the what is today? I think it's the 13th, Monday the 13th. Back at the house, I'm back at the car to finish disconnecting the transmission. I need to pull out the drive shaft. I've got to also disconnect and push aside the parking brake cables in the assembly because they're directly underneath the transmission output shaft. So I got to move all that out of the way. Um, I will disconnect the transmission mounts, and I'll have plenty of time. I don't know about today, but I'm going to remove the entire cross member just so I can clean it up and degrease it and clean it up, and then I'll put it back in place temporarily. Just put a couple of bolts in it to support the bottom of the transmission while the car is being moved. I also will have to remove all of the housing bolts between the engine and transmission so that by the time I get the car over there, all I got to do is hook the cherry picker to it and pull the engine right out and then drop the transmission. So I'm just trying to save time at the end in 2 weeks for when the car is over there. I've ordered or I'm about to order a oil pan gasket for the engine because I'm gonna swap oil pans since the one on this car, the oil pan's in better shape than the one on the engine I bought. This is the drain plug part of it. And I ordered, I guess that was about it. So anyway, I'm just going to work on getting underneath this car and doing what I got to do to disconnect the transmission the rest of the way until I run out of time. I do have to do a couple of jobs too before the sun goes down. All right, here I am under the car, under the transmission, the parking brake assembly. I can do this upside down or somehow do this. Here's the parking brake assembly right here. I just need to take this nut all the way off to release the cables and kind of fold this whole arm out of the way. The spring and all that will come loose and I'll be able to move them out of the way. Then I can support the output shaft with this little bottle jack that's right there, and then take the cross member off and clean it like I was talking about earlier. There's actually 2 cross members. There's that one that holds the transmission mounts, and I do have new transmission mounts to put on there. And then there's this other cross member, so I'll take them both off. I'll leave this forward cross member off because it's just kind of an added safety thing. I don't think it actually directly supports the transmission. And then the drive shaft itself, if I can, I will disconnect it at the front here. No, I got to disconnect it at the rear too because then it'll just be hanging down. Anyway, I'll figure that out. I was just going to disconnect it at the rear axle, and then just pull it all the way out of the transmission. So I'll decide later how to do that. So right now, I'm hoping that one of these wrenches here fits on the end of this. I don't even know what size it is. If I can get this on there. Oh, look at that. Okay, I just happened to pick the right size. So just sit here and undo this all the way, and then that'll loosen up that whole assembly, like I said earlier. All right, there's what it looks like with the parking brake cable out of the way. You can see the speedometer going into the housing there. There's a small 3/8 bolt maybe sitting there. I'll unscrew that and pull out the speedometer, and I'm going to get an impact gun and quickly remove that extra support safety cross member there. There's the bar and the spring from the parking brake, so I'll go stick that in the parts washer and let that soak for a while. All right, most things are out of the way now. You can see the speedometer cable's been pulled out. That one cross member has been removed. I now have the front under the transmission oil pan. I have a piece of wood and a little bottle jack to support it. I pushed it away from the cross member here a little bit. Both of those mounts are broken. I've already got new ones. I've already received them, so I'll put those on the other transmission when it comes time to install it. So now what I'm going to do is remove the 3 bolts that are on each side of the main rails, the frame rails, and then this whole cross member will just drop onto the ground. Then I can clean it and dry it out and then reinstall it with just a couple of bolts, 1 or 2 on each side, just to hold it temporarily
until I get the car into the shop. So we're moving along. The other thing I will do when I have while I have the front of the car jacked up is I'll remove all the bolts that hold the bell housing, the transmission bell housing to the engine, because that's all going to have to be removed since I'm removing the engine separately from the transmission.
All right, so this was the main supporting cross member here that I got off the car. I took a scraper and scraped most of the loose mud and grease and stuff that was on it, and then I used that universal solvent with a rag and just kind of wiped it off. You know, universal solvent, the same stuff that runs my lawnmower. It's amazing stuff. In a well-ventilated area, of course. But so I cleaned that off good enough. So now I'm going to put that back under the car to support the transmission. Here's one of the transmission mounts. Of course, it's broken. I already knew it was broken, but that's okay. I can still support the transmission because I still, in order to get the drive shaft out, I have to raise the rear of the car. There isn't enough room to crawl under there with the front end raised up like it is. So also while I was under there, I finished removing the bolts that hold the transmission to the engine. They're 5/8 bolts, size bolts. Came out pretty easy. I just have a few left on top here to do. There's a couple right there you can see on top, but those I'll do after the car is back on the ground. I can just hop up on the hood and take those out real quick. And then I'm almost done actually with disconnecting the transmission. Just mainly got to get the drive shaft out, which I don't think I'm going to have time to do today. But I will finish up on the front here. I'm about ready to put that cross member back in temporarily with just a couple of bolts on the side, and then rest it back down on that, and then let the car down. And that'll be it for the day, I would imagine. All right, I'm wrapping it up for the day. I got to go take pictures at a couple of houses before the sun is completely down. So I put everything away, got the car back on the ground. So the transmission I'm pretty much done with. Mainly what I have left to do is to pull the drive shaft out, which I will do from the rear of the car. So I'll raise the rear of the car next time I have some time to work on it, to get that out. And then I have about 3 or 4 bolts on top of the engine to take out to completely disconnect the engine from the transmission. And that's pretty much going to do it. So I'll won't have much left as far as getting the car towed over there and pulling out the old engine. Although I am going to get some more chains, so that's already bolted on there and ready to go to save time. But anyway, successful day. I'm pleased. Have a good one.